Jamie Baxter, you're the founder and CEO of Exodus 90. Thanks for joining today.
Johann, it's a delight. Thanks for the invitation. Really humbled to receive it and excited for our time together.
So your program, Exodus 90, for those who aren't familiar with it, well, why don't you just describe it real quick before we get into your purpose for founding it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I got to start mission if that's okay. So fundamentally, why we exist is to be uncommonly free. So everything that we do, all of our programming, kind of revolves around this theme of personal freedom. As Catholics, so we're a Catholic apostolate for men. Um, Freedom is very different from like the world's kind of ideas about, even within an American context of rights and responsibilities, or certainly from, kind of license and doing what you would like, which is manifold, in today's kind of worldly thinking. We look at freedom as becoming who you were created to be. God our Father has a design and intention for every one of us uniquely. And freedom is ultimately, kind of the correspondence of yourself with um, your purpose and who you were, who he made you to be for our time, and which is different from anybody else. And so that's what freedom really is about: is kind of creating the conditions for us to be able to more fully surrender to God, and by that to ultimately to become fulfilled and really to fulfill your purpose. So freedom is the thrust. We do, basically we have programs that run all year round for small groups of men. They typically have a prayerful, ascetic, or a kind of a discipline, and a fraternal element to them. So prayer, asceticism, and fraternity are kind of the dimensions of the work. And really, what we're about is trying to create a place of holistic formation for men, and offer formation that touches minds, hearts, and the way that we live. Oftentimes, the faith and faith formation is reduced to ideas and just kind of touching our minds, which is all important. I mean, every battle we face in the world is ultimately at the level of ideas. So ideas are very powerful. But we look at our work as one of holistic formation, body, mind, and soul. So when you come into Exodus 90 experiences, they definitely touch and affect the way that you live and the lifestyle you take up. So we are most known for a 90-day program that leads up to Easter Sunday called Exodus 90. And it's a journey through the book of Exodus, and that small groups of men take together. They commit to a particularly challenging way of life and to meeting together in fraternity. Again, all of that is oriented to growth and personal freedom. And I've been at it now for 10 years, which is kind of crazy to say, but it's been a wild ride. It's been fun.
And you free people by convincing them to deny themselves in all kinds of areas for 90 days. It's very countercultural. Most people wouldn't consider themselves capable of doing it, but a lot of people do. So what exactly are they sacrificing or / adding to their life during those 90 days?
Yeah, you're right to say that you kind of sign up for a bit of a challenge. I mean, I guess it's kind of not unlike going on an adventure. What's interesting about this adventure is it happens in your real life, right in front of you. And I think part of the there's a couple ideas buried within that, but I have this. So I'm really big into the Desert Fathers, and we're doing a series right now on the Desert Fathers. It's called Desert Fathers in a Year, and this was like early Christians. We're talking like 200-300 years after Christ. Okay, so really close to his presence among us when God became a man. And what's so interesting is this wisdom that's emerged in this what's called the sayings of the Desert Fathers. And you read this stuff, and it's like so practical. And these men and women became masters of the human condition. And one of the thrusts of the desert was this idea um, that go to your cell, and your cell will teach you everything. Like sit there, and you will find everything that you need. And um, And so the point of our stuff is like, hey, you don't need to go anywhere to find opportunities for sacrifice. They're right in front of you. And we ultimately live in a cultural context where every corporation in the country is incentivized greatly to make our lives easier, cheaper, faster, more enjoyable, more distracting. And we kind of take a different approach. We just kind of want to offer a way out, an exodus from, that environment that does not lead to much wholeness or flourishing, if we're honest with ourselves. And so, yeah, during Exodus 90, guys take up, they commit to an hour of daily prayer. Um, you, you journey through the book of Exodus with us. You take up a kind of an ascetic way of life, a challenging way of life. Cold showers is a part of it, fasting on Wednesdays and Fridays, not eating between meals. You kind of you really reconsider how you use technology and really try to return it to the domain of a tool and not as a place of leisure. So you limit basically any unessential technology use. And I'm sure there's other, exercise is an element of it too. So kind of these things that kind of touch the way that you live. But what makes it special is you're part of a tribe. I mean, we got Exodus guys now all over the world, huge in the United States by God's grace, which is really cool. And so, you join a brotherhood, man, of other guys who are living a similar way of life. And, I wish I could tell you like Exodus stuff is for this kind of guy, but we see so many different things. And Exodus 90 is so misunderstood when it's kind of talked about as this thing for the elite or for like these like really holy Catholic men. That's just not the lived experience of this on the ground at all. We have a lot of guys who aren't Catholic, a lot of guys who have not had a serious spiritual experience, honestly, before this. And somehow, men find fruit. And I think this is actually kind of goes back to the fundamental mission. It's like when you grow in freedom, you grow in uniqueness and you overcome the conformity of sin and the world. And that's what I love about the work is you talk to any guy, he'll say something so different. And that's what keeps me interested. It's just these testimonies from guys having these experiences and, taking away very different things from one another. Really excites me.
You're a great CEO. You're really good at highlighting the mission and the purpose and saying it in an inspiring and articulate way. Where I'm just trying to get to the meat and potatoes, and you're explaining the background, which is a lot more inspiring.
Oh, well, no, I appreciate that. I mean, for me, I look at the work as apostolate. So, I don't really just look at it as a job or a company. And what is apostolate? In a Catholic understanding, apostolate, it's to engage in apostolic work, and I look at the whole thing as a part of Jesus' mission to save the world. And so for me and for our team, our first charism that really animates all of our work is the contemplative life and being a contemplative first. So everything has its origin in our, silent prayer. That's starts with me as an example, but all the way down to our newest employee, learning to really pray seriously and to receive from God the inspiration for your work so that we can accomplish what God has created us to be and to do today. So I appreciate that. I think the reason why I always go back to mission is for me, it's not just like ideas I've had and, I'm not just like doing stuff, to do it. I feel like deeply called to do this and grateful to be a part of it. And however long it goes, so I'm here for it. And, my goal is just to kind of stay out of the way and let the Lord work through us as reservoirs of His love.
Well, it's a much more profound reason for doing it than thinking, how am I going to get these lazy slobs to practice self-discipline? So I congratulate you on that.
No, yeah, and me, for me too, it's like I'm a pretty, I don't know. I like to think I'm realistic, but maybe I could be bent towards optimism. I guess I know there's some positives and negatives to that, but really, I look at the whole thing as an invitation. It's like, hey, if you're a man looking to grow in freedom, we're here for you. We'd love to have you. If we can support your journey. If not, no problem. I mean, the church is a treasure full of so many wonderful ministries, apostolates, companies doing great things. And, we just try to stay focused on what we feel called to do. And if it resonates with you, awesome. And if not, no problem.
Dude, I just want to buy something from you right now. you're great at pitching.
Oh,
So, I was talking to a spiritual director, and he said that Exodus 90 is the best way that he's seen for people to practice self-sacrifice and to
okay.
break habits like pornography addiction, because they're taking the fasting from the screens and that sort of thing. Uh, so I'm curious, is that part of the intention? Why is it 90 days? That's pretty long. 3 months. Does that have anything to do with like breaking addictions? If anything, like my one critique would be, uh, it's man, it just crushes me when I see people in the Christmas season starting Exodus 90. But
Yeah.
but maybe you do that intentionally because they need the 90 days to break out of bad habits.
Yeah. Those are all really good questions and a thoughtful observation too on Christmas season, which I'll get into at the end. But yeah, so men come to Exodus for all kinds of different reasons, and there are patterns that we observe, and we call them. We all have our idols, we all have our pharaohs, and I don't stand here and say like, "Oh, I'm the perfectly free man." It's like, no, it's like I absolutely have places in my heart that um, more growth and more freedom is possible for. I believe that. But every one of us has our own things, but there are patterns, and so pornography is one of those patterns. But there are many others as well, and so I've really tried to, in the Catholic life, when you start talking about freedom, everyone goes towards chastity. I don't really like that. I don't think that's right.
Dude, I don't like chastity either. Oh
Yeah,
no, sorry.
no,
You're
no,
talking about something else. No, that
no.
was a joke. Actually,
Yeah, yeah,
one of my values of my private practice is the beauty of chaste love. So
yeah.
I just want to clarify to everyone that that was just
Yeah,
a joke.
yeah, no, and it's no jab on chastity itself. It's more just, freedom is bigger than the sexual domain of life, right? So, I don't know. I think sometimes in an American context, we get so fixated on that, to the detriment actually of overcoming the actual struggles. So,
Mhm.
the other thing I would just say is that, I'm really big. We were talking about this earlier, Johann, but I'm really big on the integration of our humanity with our spirituality, and grace builds on nature. So I don't look at Exodus 90 stuff as magic bullets for addictions at all. Some people in the throes of habitual struggle for decades are going to need a lot more support than we can offer them. Obviously, clinical help, other support groups locally, you know, all of those things. In the coming year, we're going to be really focused on playing our part to better support the men in the struggle of pornography, and a couple of other struggles that are key themes, to help them kind of in their own kind of formation around those topics and how to understand them, mostly just to stay encouraged so that they don't give up as they struggle through the journey to overcome sin by the power of God's grace. And so I would just say, again, I don't look at the work as magic bullets to overcome addiction. A lot of the time addiction needs a lot closer, more intentional support, and that's just based on cutting edge science, and so we'll do what we can to support that journey, but we don't pretend to be the full destination there. So there's that element. At the same time, it is long. 90 days is a long time. Part of that's borrowed just from kind of fundamental elements around AA and the successes there. Um, and again, I don't look at it as a magic bullet. Like, don't do these things for 90 days and you'll be better. Like, maybe you'll certainly start to rewire neural networks in the brain, but it's ultimately daily decisions that build up over time, that create these patterns of greater freedom. So I like 90 days because it's like long enough to have successes, have failures, keep going, hopefully make progress. It's attainable. It's like, okay, it's a quarter of the year, but it's not forever. And at the same time, the thing I would also say is we offer daily formation for men, grafted onto the liturgical calendar. So what you may not know is, even in the Christmas season, we actually all of our formation revolves around entering into the joy and festivity of those sacred days. And we we absolutely do modify disciplines around the celebration of holy days. So, I would say that. The other element I would add is, we're about to, as we wrap up Lent and transition to Easter, we have a whole 50-day Easter celebration experience. We call it Easter 50. And the
Nice.
reason for this is no one knows. I mean, so the Easter season is longer than Lent.
Yeah.
Okay. And no one knows. And I've been at this now intentionally for decades. How do you live the Easter season in a meaningfully sustained way? So our team has been obsessed with this problem and really trying to offer formation around how to continue to make build on the progress that many people find in Lent, but not overcoming to kind of like the Easter blues of like going back to the sins that weren't good for us anyway.
Mhm.
So that we can actually live in the joy and light of the resurrection and ultimately receive the Holy Spirit at Pentecost, for the personal missions we all have.
Great. So I have a feeling it's not just like stuffing your face with chocolate.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that a little bit, but no, it's not just that.
And so you're having an initiative to help people with pornography. Any preview of that? What resources you're going to use for that, or who you're going to collaborate with?
Thank you. I'm in the earliest days, honestly, on that initiative. I'm also kind of thinking about struggles that men often come to us with work, finding purpose and meaning in work, but also just struggling with overworking, to kind of escape life. In some sense, I'm focused on that. Alcohol, obviously some men are in addictions. It's not so much the addictions element of alcohol that I'm interested in. It's more just the numbing effect that alcohol can casually be culturally. And not, again, this is not I'm in no way saying on alcohol, like I'm not a teetotaler, to be fully transparent. It's just how do we drink well, and then when I'm not, and I know that I'm not, why? And trying to offer help there. So I'll just say that we'll be working with subject matter experts who are the best at these things, and then pairing them with our the priests and monastics that work with us to kind of pair the best of human and spiritual formation for men today. And my goal on all of it is for it to date as fast as possible. I want to stay on the cutting edge as possible on research, and as we learn more, just continue to update to provide to more perfectly accomplish our mission, of helping our men to grow in uncommon freedom. So that's the goal. That's what we're after, and I cannot wait, to get after that and offer that kind of support. There's two other aspects though of that work though. First is just encouragement. um, I'm big on like, hey, life's tough. The fall is challenging. Our sins make it even more complicated. We've all endured traumas, in our earliest years and even through life. Life is hard, it is really hard. But in a Catholic vision, those who are baptized, we are sons and daughters of a loving Father. And he has allowed even very painful things to happen to us. If we can persevere in his love, they've been happening to us, to accomplish something truly beautiful that otherwise would not have otherwise been possible. And it's just my fundamental belief that reality, even when it's hard, will never betray us, because God has become a man and redeemed us and everything that happens to us. And we're all children, in our Father's hands. And so I just like to try to stay really encouraging, even when we suffer
Mhm.
and even when we struggle. It's a part of life that's really challenging, and we won't fully know why, until the end. But we just want to offer daily encouragement for those suffering in those kind of struggles, those idols, those pharaohs, to encourage them on their way. And the last element is I'm big on real life stuff. Okay, so we build a software product, but our fraternities are real life fraternities. When our regular guy thinks of Exodus, he doesn't think like, wow, that's a great app. He thinks of his local friends. And when you come to the app, we can help you find local friends, that are willing to take these kind of challenges. And this is just our incarnational worldview, as Catholics. So my I would just say that I'm big on reality. And so as we go into this human formation work, I also want to encourage, our guys, like, hey, if this struggle is just more than we can really do for you, or you can manage yourself, even in your local fraternity context, which is there as a place of encouragement and mercy and accountability, all those things, then hey, you're going to need to get help, and we'll do our best to do kind of the quality assurance work to help send our men to the real life resources that they need. And obviously, there's a lot of stigmas around all these things, especially for men, and there's no need for that, and we can overcome that, and we're going to.
Who would you say is the subject matter expert for pornography treatment?
I don't want to be, I don't, there's a lot of folks that I look up to kind of in that space. And so I just say, I'm kind of waiting to see what's possible for them and doable for them from a standpoint before I kind of make these promises. But there's another number of wonderful, men and women who have accomplished a lot that I would love to be able to partner with. But we don't, to be transparent and honest, because you asked this so directly, I don't know. I don't actually have our partners lined up yet. I just have
Sure.
my wish list.
Yeah. I'd just be curious to hear a little bit more of your role as CEO and the business side of things. Like what's the reach of Exodus 90? If you're willing to share, like how profitable is it, if at all, or if not, like how do you fund it? And then what does your day to day as a CEO look like? How big's your team? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so we've been on an interesting journey, and it's not been a linear one. So I've been at this now for 10 years. Originally, it was a nonprofit. Starting nonprofits from scratch in the faith space is really hard. It's hard to win the trust of donors, and it's easy when you have your institution built and your endowment, et cetera. It's really hard when you're starting from zero. And so I just struggled to raise the money that I needed for the work that I wanted to do. And so I built a product in 2018. So we went to the mobile app space before it was cool. I mean, we were so early to it that I was like, maybe apps will be over in 5 years and we'll move on to the next thing. And we just got fortunate. We caught a kind of a trend there. I wish I could say it was super strategic on our part, but it really wasn't. It was just listening to our men and their encouragements to us. So in the earliest days, like we were just selling books and ebooks and email drips and shirts and sending boxes and stuff. But we went mobile in 2018. That transformed us. When COVID happened, we were uniquely positioned to serve the church in a time of real crisis. So we did great, in those years, and we've continued to kind of grow since then. So we were eventually though we went private. So nuances to that. It's not it does happen. It's not super common. Most of the time when nonprofits fold up, it's because it's not work, or it's over. Ours was, things were going well, but we couldn't find the money, the real money we needed. And so I asked a guy for a donation. He's a wonderful man. And just through his own family foundation, they're like, hey, they give away a ton of money philanthropically, but they're like, I'm listening to you talk. You just sound a lot more like a startup founder than like a bleeding heart missionary guy, but I'm kind of both. And so, he's like, hey, why don't we figure out how to make the transition? And basically through his generosity, he made that happen. It opened up funding for us, which is great. And so, yeah, I have one value aligned investor who thinks very long term, is really passionate about our work. And I'm so grateful, that God brought us together in his plan. And that's just allowed us to, improve the quality of our team, the kind of, people we can hire now. And that's ultimately been to the blessing of the men that we serve. I mean, our work has transformed over the last 3 years because of it. In terms of reach, what we say publicly is, we've had over 250,000 Exodus men. That's a
Wow,
little bit
dude, that's
dated.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so really grateful for that. We're reaching men all over the world by God's grace, which is really humbling. And but to be honest with you, it's all, Exodus 90 grows by referral and word of mouth. you know um we've tried all the paid marketing stuff, and it just hasn't really worked out. It's been like super distracting, and I hate that work anyway. And so we've really kind of kind of torn down the things that startups do, and instead we call it integrity as leverage. So we just speak from the heart about what we're passionate about, and just invite men to join us if they want to and if it's for them. And so what's so cool is like that's how Exodus really has grown up to this point. It's men finding out about it and inviting men of their local community to join them. And our encouragement to our guys is never to invite, who they perceive to be the perfect Catholic or Christian men. They should invite the men that God places on their hearts and just see what happens, through the experience. So, that's how it started. And I'd say got a little bit distracted trying to do the things that you're supposed to do at our stage of growth and all this stuff. And within the last year, I found a lot of courage to just say, you know what, screw it. Like, we're doing this our way, and makes it a little less predictable. But it allows us to be, I think just a lot higher quality, honestly, all around. So in terms of how I spend my time, so we have a small team. We only have 8 full-time staff members. We could definitely have more than that, but in the faith space, most jobs are really, people are undercompensated, and I look at that and I admire people's willingness to commit and to make sacrifices for their employers. In the first 3 years of Exodus, I poured everything I had into it, and I saw nothing in return. But when it started to work, I knew that I was not going to ask anyone else to do that. And so what I have tried to do is stay committed to hiring very slowly. And I've made some mistakes over time. I don't want to act like I've had this all figured out. I've gotten here through a lot of failures, or mistakes that I learned from. So maybe it's not a failure, but just mistakes on that. But ultimately, where I am now is, we got a couple 8 guys. They got great jobs. They're really competitive jobs. I'm competing not against the faith space, but to market, and so and even better in some cases. And I'm really proud of that because that's so rare in the church. And I think that also kind of creates the conditions for people to be fully focused on their work, because they're not needing to pile up side gigs to make ends meet. Their spouse doesn't have to work if they don't want to work, which is something I'm also passionate about. And a lot of time, faith-based families, they don't necessarily want that equation, but they have to, to make everything work in our inflationary times. And I'm trying to, in my little sliver of the universe, create a different path. So there's that in terms of how I spend my day. At this point, I got great people here. I was used to do everything. Obviously, every startup founder is that way, but you hire, the best people you can, in their domains of specialty. And so I'm so grateful to get to work with the guys that I do. I look at all of them. I mean, most of them have been CEOs other places or founders. And if they haven't been, they're capable of being that. And the reason I do that is because, they're effectively one-man departments. And so they've got a ton of leadership experience, and it keeps our communication super simple. And I trust them. I step in when I need to apply my founder kind of pressure and urgency and all that stuff, which, it is the founder's job to inject risk, which is impossible, for an employee to fully be able to do. And it's not their fault. It's just founders inject risk. And so I tried to do that as I need to. But the vast majority of the time, I'm just taking kind of their recommendations, and we're going forward that way. In terms of our workflow, we work in 6-week cycles. We stole this from the Basecamp guys, Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansen, who I look up to a lot and respect. I probably have different first principles and values than they do, but there's a lot on the work life stuff that they've really figured out well. And so every 6 weeks, we commit to our workflows. We don't do hyper long-term planning. We do short-term planning. 6 weeks is nice because it's like, close enough that you feel it from day one. And it's also not far enough where, you don't have to get started today, when a cycle starts. So we run on cycles, which is to say, because of that, we get a lot done around here. And what we're able to do with 8 people with leadership experience, a lot of maturity, with high trust, and with that kind of accountability, we get a lot done. I'm really proud of them. In terms of my own life, I look at the work as apostolate, like I said earlier. And so, my mornings, I don't do, well, we avoid meetings at all costs. We limit
I
meetings
love
as much
that.
as we can. Less is always more. So when we have to have a meeting, we're trying to have as few people there as possible. So, the team knows like, hey, a meeting of 3 is a red flag. Meeting of 2 is better. No meetings is the best. So, we're able to do that because of the high trust environment that we built up. And that just creates a lot of space to actually doing the work that makes the difference and blesses the men that we serve. And so, for that reason, applied to my own life as the CEO, I don't take any meetings in the morning at all. I pray for a lot of the time. I read, I write, I think, I go on walks. I have a morning prayer routine that's essential to me. And so, because for me, if I'm not praying, this whole thing's in vain and won't be fruitful. So everything for me starts there. That's the foundation. And then I kind of take that kind of deep work time, borrowing that from Cal Newport, is a guy I love. And then the afternoon is for shallow work. So meetings, email, Basecamp. That's our internal communication tool that we use as a team, which I can't highly recommend enough. It's the best by far. It's better than all of the tools out there. Take that superlative. But we run our company on Basecamp. I love it. And proud customer, have been for a long time. And so it's awesome. It's great. And I try to wrap up the day in a timely fashion. The other thing I'll just say is, listen, time will fit the amount of, or work will fit the amount of time you let it. So you have to scope it. And for us in men's formation work, if me and my team are not really great husbands and fathers, and we claim to help men become who they were created to be, the vast majority of guys are husbands and fathers, the whole thing is hypocritical and a contradiction. So I try to get off work early. I don't work at nights. I don't work on the weekends. Things do get left undone because of that. But at the end of the day, the legacy I'm going to leave is in the minds and hearts of my children and in my wife. And I know that, and I'm not at all confused about that as it relates to some of the true successes that we have had on the work side. It's all great. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful to get to do this still. But the impact that I make is when my sons and my daughter reflexively just think of me in the air as they're going about their day. They're like, he loves me. That's what, and that's what I want them to feel. That's the dent I want to make, in the universe. And so because of that, though, I'm really passionate about what we do at work. But if it becomes a contradiction or becomes hypocritical, the whole thing is in vain. And from a spiritual perspective, will not be fruitful. It won't be fruitful, into eternity, which is all that matters to me.
Your team sounds amazing. I would love to work with a team like that. How old are you, man?
I'm getting old. I'm 34.
Oh man,
So I
you're
started
young,
working
dude.
on this at 24. Yep.
How'd you learn how to be a founder?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you start by doing, right? Especially from a founding standpoint. Listen, like where I am today is not where I was in year 1, and it wasn't where I was in year 5. And you make a lot of mistakes along the way. And I think the best founders that I have learned from are those that are really humble, and they know how fragile their thing is. And my thing is fragile. And I make a lot of mistakes. And I just do my best when I make a mistake to learn from it, and with God's help and grace and my team, move forward in grace. So there's kind of the humility element there. And obviously humility is not something that you ever have. You're always growing in it. I mean, our lives are full of opportunities to be grounded, and the fleetingness of our lives. And so there's that. I think the other thing is, I have relearned, in the earliest days, you are taking risks, but they're not that big because there's nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing for me to lose in the earliest days. But over time, as you start to experience success, it gets harder because success is hard, and growth is hard. Um, and I think one of the many mistakes that I've made over the years, it's trying to clone the success of other people, and especially other founders, right? So I think my greatest encouragement to founders is be open to learning from everyone you meet, be they respectable or the homeless person on the street. Be open to everybody. Everyone is a human being made in God's image and likeness. We're all aliens here, on a journey to our homeland. Learn from everybody, but as it relates to your thing and your company, at least for me, speaking of this in a religious context, you receive it, and then you've got to go on your gut. And as soon as you start cloning other people and doing the things that worked for them, basically you're just trying to ask them to read you their lottery ticket number, stealing a quote from Naval. And it's unhelpful. And so in the last couple of years, I'd say the last 2, I've gotten a lot more in touch with my gut, and I do a lot more things that don't make a lot of sense, but work for us, you know? So, and that's my encouragement to all founders whenever, because people do, humbly ask for advice and stuff. And the first thing I say is like, hey, I'll be happy to give you my judgment on the situation you're describing to me, but I am not you, and I'm not called to do what you're asked to do. Discount what I'm saying to absolute zero, and go, take it, but then go on your gut. And you've got to do that. So, as it relates to how I've learned to be a founder, it's like you learn every day. You make a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes are blessings if you learn from them. And I wouldn't even, of the things that I would quote do over, I wouldn't even do them over because I learned from them. And I'm just grateful to still be at it, and we'll see what the future holds and how long it endures.
Incredible, man. I wish you lived in Houston, dude. I would take you out for beer, lunch, whatever. You look like a whiskey guy.
Oh yeah, I don't drink a ton anymore, to be honest with you. It's just like I'm a sleep guy, so I'm like the opposite of the founders that don't sleep. I like have to sleep 8 or 9 hours. Now I have young kids, so obviously that doesn't always happen. Um, But yeah, but like, man, when I drink too much or even drink a little bit, it just messes with my sleep quality, and then I'm just so awful the next day. And anyway, so I don't drink a ton anymore. But when I do, I really love Balvenie Scotch. I got into that when I turned 21. I still like it a lot. So recommendation there.
Yeah, I'm actually similar when it comes to alcohol. In fact, I recently basically stopped.
Oh, really?
But
Yeah.
yeah, just mainly for just health reasons and just mental acuity, that sort of thing. I tell my friends that I always liked the idea of drinking more than the actual drinking itself.
I'm the same way, man. Yeah, and I have a lot of friends too that have kind of landed there. So I love non-alcoholic beers. I like it. Kind of gets what I kind of get the carbonation and the taste that I need, but without any of the effects. So anyway, that's worked for me.
Dude, I'm addicted to club soda, like Topo Chico, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yes, so, dude. My brother Doyle, who I work with, he's my best friend. He's my right hand guy. Without him, none of this would have ever happened. And he should get more of the credit than he does because he's essential to our success here. But he's a big Topo Chico guy and club soda guy, and he actually quit drinking, 4 years ago or so now, and that's incredible too because I'm like naturally moderate, and he is not. He's very can struggle with intemperance, and he's just done this beautiful job of accepting that and moving forward in a way that's just really worked for him, and I'm really proud of him.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, thanks, Jamie. You have an incredible story. I can tell that you're going to go places, man. I mean, you already have, but you're going to help a lot of people. And if I ever start a board, you're the first person I'm going to ask.
Oh man, yeah. Well, so here's my thing on boards. Do you want to know?
Do you don't join boards?
No, man. So here's my thing. Even to founders starting companies is like keep your boards so small. The less voices, the better. And so, yeah, I got invited to join an advisory board yesterday, and I was just like, hey, I will talk to you whenever you want. Just call me and I'll give you my gut on stuff. But like, I just don't do formal meet. Like, I'm not a formal meetings guy.
Yeah,
And
same
part of
here,
it's
man.
because of my favorite saint is a man. He lived in the 19th century. So in the 1800s in England, his name is Saint John Henry Newman. So Newman centers all around the country are named from him. And he has this quote. He said, "Nothing great was accomplished by committee, but by individuals, persons responding to grace." And that's just something that has really resonated with me. And that's honestly why we built the company the way we have, where you're really close to your work. We don't do management. We don't do middle management kind of stuff. But I also I could expand my own board, and I actively resist not. Like, there's two people, me and my investor, and so if you asked me, Johann, I'd say no, to be honest, and I'd say don't form
Respect,
one.
dude. That just made me respect you even more. And yeah, honestly, I don't see myself starting a board anytime soon because I don't want to be beholden to anyone, and I don't want anyone else to have a piece of my company either. So, but,
Yeah,
well,
got it.
let's end it here. Jamie Baxter, Exodus 90.
Hey, Johann, great to be with you. Thanks for the invite, man. It's been fun.